Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the event on climate, health and nutrition hosted by Ethiraj College for Women in association with IPL Foundation and Chennai International Centre. Let us rise for Tamil Thai Varthu, a tribute to our language, culture and unity.
நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் வதனமென திகழ்பரத கண்டமிதழ் தெக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனர் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிலமை திறம் வியந்து செய்ய மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
Thank you, Shrikriti of third year BCom Bank Management and Shrukriti of second year BCom Bank Management for the soulful rendition. To set the tone for today's program, let us begin with a powerful note that is easy to remember and important to live by. Our health, our food, our planet all thrive when we make sustainable choices. As we go through today's session, let us keep this message in mind. Small choices can lead to big changes. Now, I invite our Principal and Secretary, Dr. S. Uma Gauri, to deliver the welcome address.
A very good morning to one and all present here. Very good morning, students. Esteemed Chief Guest of today's program, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, Dr. E.D. Israel Oliver King, Director, Biodiversity Wing, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia, ex-senior scientist, CIFOR-ICRAF, Thiru Dr. C. Chandramouli, IAS retired, Managing Director, CIC, respected Chairman, Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, Ethiraj College for Women, Vice Principals, Mrs. Beulah Jebakumari Shuganthi and Dr. M. Jayanti, former Principal in Charge, Dr. Usharani Ma'am, and all the heads and faculty members from various departments, the deans, directors, heads of the departments, esteemed members of the faculty, and my dear students, a very warm welcome and good morning to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a heartfelt welcome to you all to this one-day seminar on climate, health, and nutrition organized by Ethiraj College for Women in association with Chennai International Centre and Indian Potash Limited. We are truly honored to have with us Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, an eminent global health leader and the first chief scientist of the World Health Organization. Her illustrious career, spanning over 4 decades in clinical research, public health, and global policy, has transformed healthcare system worldwide. As the chairperson of MSSRF, her visionary focus on the intersection of climate change, health, and nutrition continues to inspire global action and equity in healthcare. We are equally privileged to welcome Dr. E.D. Israel Oliver King, a distinguished ethnobotanist and Director, Biodiversity MSSRF. His pioneering work in community biodiversity management, agroforestry, and livelihood enhancement across rural and tribal landscapes has significantly contributed to the empowerment of farming communities and the conservation of indigenous biodiversity. A warm welcome to Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia, a renowned wetland biogeochemist whose research on tropical wetlands, mangroves, and peatlands across diverse geographies has deepened scientific understanding of carbon sequestration and nature-based climate solutions. His contributions serve as a crucial bridge between environmental science and policy-driven conservation efforts. This seminar brings together the scholars, scientists, and students to explore the critical nexus between climate resilience, human health, and nutrition security, a dialogue that resonates deeply in today's context of global environmental change. I extend my sincere appreciation to our vice principals, council, and staff secretaries, and our ever enthusiastic students whose participation enriches today's academic discourse. On behalf of Ethiraj College for Women, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished guests for gracing this occasion and sharing this expertise with our academic community. I also express my sincere appreciation to our organizing partners, the Chennai International Centre and Indian Potash Limited, for their collaboration and support in making this academic event possible. To our students, may the seminar open new avenues of thought and inspire you to become change makers who work towards a healthier, more equitable and sustainable world. A warm welcome to Mr. Sabari from the Center for International Centre. And once again, I warmly welcome each and every one of you to this enlightening academic gathering. Thank you.
We thank you, ma'am, for the gracious welcome. May I now take the honor of inviting Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, Chairman of Ethiraj College Trust, to deliver the presidential address.
Very good morning to all of you. In fact, when Sabri called me about 15 days back, almost a month back, to say that, to request if we can have Dr. Soumya and the other two experts address this topic, climate, health and nutrition in our campus. The first thing was I said yes, but then we had to find the right date slot. It was a no-brainer because more than the people on the stage, the experts, all of these people, we thinking about it, the key is the youngsters think about it. In fact, it is for the future more than for the present, this topic. And arguably, probably the experts who have the locus standi and the wisdom, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan's Chairperson of MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, Dr. Israel Oliver King, Director Biodiversity of MSSRF, and Dr. Rupesh K, Bhomia, ex-senior scientist, CIFOR-ICRAF. All of them being here, I'm sure will bring out nuances which will actually make things happen. On a different note, before I go further, it's special delight in having Dr. Soumya, who's actually been a crusader for health, not just here or in India, at a global level, in her capacity as in WHO. So it's our pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Definitely, I think it's a privilege for our students to listen to you. And the second reason is that during the 125th year birth anniversary of our founder, your father was the chief guest here. In fact, he was actually not in the best of health, but he did honor us with his presence in our institution during the 125th birth anniversary. So on these two counts, I definitely am very happy that you are here today. Thank you very much. While we discuss the need to improve in these three dimensions of health, climate, nutrition, what is important is how to put intent to action. I think that's the most important thing. And in that context, I would say these three dimensions, health, nutrition, climate, and circular sustainability are interconnected. In fact, with the circular economy providing a framework, I'm sure that it will provide access to a better life for humanity. But for a moment, I paused to think. Long back, it was more like a village life. Village was life. It was all a cluster of so many villages that made a state or a country or whatever it is. In that context, I remember in Vellore, my native place, there used to be not too big a place, but then lands alongside the house. And I used to find how they use it. I mean, like there'll be a few, cows or bulls. There will be fertilizers which are natural. The house had, அந்த காலத்துல சொல்லுவாங்க, அந்த முத்தம்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. Even our founder's house has that in the middle, there where there is ventilation and air circulation. The whole life was built around certain level of self-sustenance. It was all a circular, I don't know whether to call it economy for economy's sake, or that was what you call some type of a sustaining mechanism where people used to have everything within what they had, everything achieved with what they had. The fertilizers were natural, the air circulation was natural, the ventilation was natural. I think they grew when electricity was not really there and evolved with very limited electricity available. So it was all not going beyond what is natural. And temple tanks which were repository for water. So if you look at it, a village, today we call globe a village. But that was more because of the internet. But in that context, in the same breath, I would say globe as a village is not just an understatement. All that we did in a village, we have to do it for a city, for a state, for a country, for the world. In that context, if you look at it, it needs a different and a structured mass treatment. How we achieve this thing? The idea is to improve these three aspects of climate, nutrition, and health by reducing so many probably emissions. The AC emissions, probably the highest contaminator from what I can understand. Support health by ensuring access to nutritious food. Thanks to her beloved father, I think from food deficit, we moved to food surplus. I think people have done it without realizing the impact that we don't even know how it is to have food deficit. I think we are all having comfortably whatever we want. But her father was instrumental, and in fact, he got his Bharat Ratna, I think 2 years ago, 1.5, 2 years ago. I mean, the highest recognition for being what he was. And those individuals had made that impact by creating some processes which achieved food surplus in our country. In that context, if you look at it, every aspect of what we do has to be having a process which will achieve that. And in that context, if you look at it, experts like these three people will have certain ideas which they can infiltrate into your minds. And if you can understand those aspects, I'm sure that in a small way, if each of you can contribute, I'm sure the world will be a much better place for us to live in. And all these will not just lead to health, climate, and nutrition, but I'm sure that when it reaches all strata of society, because it is not just you and me, but people who are at the lower strata of society, social injustice will give a better life for all. And I look forward to listen to them along with all of you. Thank you very much. May God bless.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words and valuable insights. It's my privilege to invite Dr. C. Chandramouli, IAS retired, Managing Director of Chennai International Centre, to share his perspectives on CIC.
Distinguished dignitaries on the dais, dear friends. I think it's a very timely topic. Climate, all of us are experiencing a different climate pattern nowadays. Yesterday, it was predicted that we are going to have heavy rains, and there's going to be a cyclone which is going to hit very near Chennai, and it's going to produce a lot of rains, etc. And people are bracing themselves to meet that climate change. But today is bright and sunny. So it's become so unpredictable. So climate change all over the world is a thing which people are discussing, debating, what's going to be the impact of climate change. And today we are here to talk about a very, very close connection between climate, health, and nutrition. I think it's a very, very topical subject, and we have an eminent panel of experts who will take you through the various aspects of this topic. Now, what brings me here? Well, I have a dual hat which I wear as a trustee of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. I see firsthand what goes on within the MSSRF in the field of sustainability, in the field of climate change. And MSSRF is one of the participants in all the national discourses and all the national consultations on climate and climate change. So that is one hat I wear. And the second hat I wear is that of the Chennai International Centre. Now you might be aware, last year we were here in this same platform when we got Dr. Anant Nageshwaran here, the Chief Economic Advisor. So our purpose in the Chennai International Centre is to be a platform for intellectual exchange. Chennai, as you know, is known for its intellectual capital. We are known worldwide as the intellectual capital. But we have a lot of platforms which promote art, culture, but very few platforms which promote intellectual debates, discussions, book launches, book discussions. And so we thought we'll put together a platform where we bring eminent speakers. Now we thought that just bringing eminent speakers to Chennai is not enough. We should engage with students, and therefore we have two outreaches. One is for colleges and one for schools. So we also do an annual book, a literary festival. This year it is on the November 29th. So we bring intellectuals from across India and sometimes abroad to speak to audiences in Chennai. That's what we do. So it's a great pleasure to bring to you this eminent panel of experts so that you could have a healthy discussion on this topic of climate, nutrition, and health. So this seminar will bring together science, policy, and community voices on a subject that touches every one of us, the intersection of climate, health, and nutrition. Now, why is it important? We are meeting at a time when Tamil Nadu is experiencing record heat on one side, erratic monsoons, and the new public health stresses. Climate change is no longer an abstract concern. It affects what we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and how healthy our communities can remain. The gains we have made in child nutrition, disease control, and health access are at real risk if we do not act now. And CIC's role has always been, as I said, to provide a neutral, evidence-based platform where complex issues can be discussed with clarity and purpose. Through this dialogue, we hope to move beyond awareness to action, towards practical city and state level measures that strengthen both human and environmental resilience. I must thank our distinguished speakers for readily accepting our invitation to come here and speak to us today, and also our partner, Indian Potash Limited, who has given us a generous donation to conduct such interactions in various colleges. We hope to do on other subjects too, on agriculture, on rural development, on conservation. So these are a series of seminars which we will be doing in the colleges, and it is our pleasure at the CIC to really bring younger audiences to such forums so that they can not only learn but also contribute in their own way. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank the eminent panel for gracing this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for graciously introducing us to the vision and work of Chennai International Centre and importance of balancing climate, health, and nutrition for betterment. I now call upon Dr. M. Jayanti, Vice Principal, Self-Supporting and Head of BCom Accounting and Finance, to introduce Indian Potash, and our first speaker, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Indian Potash Limited, IPL, a pioneer in agriculture inputs and services, reaches over 6 lakh villages through its 15 regional offices, driving India's agrarian growth and farmer prosperity. Through its CSR arm, the IPL Foundation, the company is committed to holistic and sustainable rural development with initiatives spanning education, healthcare, livelihood enhancement, natural resource conservation, sports, and agricultural innovation. The foundation runs Udbhav Siksha Niketan schools, providing quality education up to class 8 with plans to extend to class 10 by 2026-27. Under its PUNK initiative, over 960 rural women have been trained in tailoring and embroidery, while the project PUNK on menstrual hygiene has reached 6,500 beneficiaries across 14 villages, promoting health, dignity, and empowerment. The IPL Center for Rural Outreach, in partnership with National Productive Council, enhances farmer capacity and youth participation through initiatives like the Amrit Internship Program, which has engaged 2,000 interns and benefited over 2 lakh farmers. The Foundation Healthcare Intervention, including mobile dispensary, vans, health ATMs, and integrated One Health medical camps, ensure accessible healthcare for rural communities. It's my honor to introduce a distinguished personality who embodies the spirit of science, service, and humanity, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan. Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, was formerly Chief Scientist at the World Health Organization and is Deputy Director General for Programs. A pediatrician and globally recognized tuberculosis and HIV researcher, she has over 30 years of experience in clinical research and policy. As Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research and Secretary to the Government of India, she championed evidence-based health policy and built research capacity in India. She has published over 480 peer-reviewed works and holds honorary doctorates from Karolinska Institute, EPFL Lausanne, and LSHTM. A fellow of major science academies globally, she also serves on boards of CEPI, FIND, Alliance Biodiversity, and others. At WHO, she established the science division and played a pivotal role during the COVID-19 pandemic, coordinating scientific collaboration and equitable vaccination access through COVAX. She continues to guide global and national scientific advisory bodies. Through her dedication, she has bridged the gap between scientific research and health policy, ensuring that knowledge is translated into meaningful action. Her journey stands as an inspiration, reminding us that science, when driven by purpose and compassion, can truly change the world. We are truly honored to have such an inspiring leader with us today. We now invite Dr. Soumya Swaminathan to share her insight with us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, Sri Muralidharan, for inviting us to Ethiraj College. And thank you, Madam, for a very kind introduction. I also want to thank Chennai International Centre, Dr. Chandramouli and Sabarivas, for facilitating this interaction. So I thought I have a PowerPoint presentation, but before that, I thought we can start with a small quiz. So let me ask you a few multiple choice questions. I don't know how we're going to get the answers. Maybe you can put up your hands and answer. So the first question is, which of the following is not a greenhouse gas? Carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen, nitrous oxide. Yes? Nitrogen, very good. So nitrogen of these, so obviously methane, carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, all the three are greenhouse gases, right? The second is rising global temperatures can directly lead to an increase in, first is cardiovascular disease, second is vector-borne disease like dengue and malaria, third is genetic disorders, and fourth is hearing loss. So increasing temperatures, which of these health problems can increase? Genetic diseases, hearing loss, heart diseases, or vector-borne diseases? Anybody wants to guess? Genetic diseases. Anybody else? Genetic diseases, will it be impacted, you think, by temperature? It is more impacted by your genes, isn't it? Not by the environment. Heart could be, yes, it could be, you're not wrong. But the most common one will be vector-borne diseases, malaria and dengue. Why? Why does dengue go up when we have this type of monsoon? Especially when it is humid and warm, the mosquito larvae can actually multiply much faster. So this is why, as climate is changing, you see malaria and happening in places which did not happen before. Air pollution from burning fossil fuels is most closely linked to, first option is asthma and respiratory diseases, second is food poisoning, third is tuberculosis, and fourth is skin cancer. Asthma and respiratory diseases most common, but one should also remember that air pollution has many more impacts on the health, not only respiratory. It is on heart, it's on the brain, it is on the child's development. So pregnant woman is breathing polluted air, even the unborn baby is going to be impacted. This is why air pollution is such an important, health risk for all of us, and it's sort of invisible almost. So people tend to ignore it. Okay, now, how many of you have heard of the term co-benefits? Do you know what is co-benefit? So when you take some action, you could have a benefit or you could have a harm arising from it, no? So if you take an action in one sector, if you have a good impact in some other sector, it is called a co-benefit. So which of the following best describes a co-benefit of climate change mitigation? One is increased fossil fuel use to generate jobs. Second is improved air quality and reduced healthcare costs. Third is more industrial growth through deforestation. And the fourth is expansion of mining industries. Which of these actions will have a co-benefit for health? When you do something to impact your air quality, like reducing the fossil fuel usage, let us say you close down all the coal plants, power plants which are running on coal, and you switch completely to solar or renewable energy, then the co-benefit on health will be huge, right? Because your air pollution goes down. Similarly, there are interventions in other sectors. Can you give me an example of an intervention in transport sector? What can you do in the transport sector to improve health? Go to electric vehicles, but also increasing public transport. Better public transport would improve health. Why? One is because you are reducing pollution, but the second is because you are also increasing physical activity. When you take public transport, then you end up walking a little bit. Now, flooding due to climate change can increase the risk of which of these? Diabetes, number 1. Second is waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid. Third is vitamin deficiency. And fourth is again genetic mutations. So yeah, I think answer is clear. It's waterborne mutations. Now, which of the following is a climate resilient crop? Rice, wheat, millets, or sugarcane? Which is more climate resilient? Rice, wheat, millets, or sugarcane? Millets, very good. Which personal action contributes most directly to reducing both climate impact and improving health? Which of the private actions like you and me can take? One is using private cars for daily commuting. Second is switching to plant-based diet and active transport, like we talked about public transport, or cycling, walking. Third is increasing air conditioner use. And fourth is buying more packaged foods. Which of these will reduce climate change and impact and improve health? Pardon? Plant-based diet and active transport, right? Because all the other options actually are making it much worse. Okay, so can we go to the slides? I'll try to run through them quickly. Yes. So what I want to do is to give you a little bit of background into how climate change is actually impacting our health. Okay, so while we are moving the chairs, I'll ask you one or two more questions. How does food waste contribute to climate change? First of all, do you know that food waste contributes to climate change? Didn't think about that, right? Food waste, and it's one of the biggest, and you know that 1/3 of food that is generated in the world, that is grown, is wasted. 1/3 of food gets wasted. And there are two kinds of wastage. One is food loss, and the other is food waste. Food loss is a farmer grows the food, but before it can be eaten, it is wasted, either because it is rotting in the field, there's no proper storage, there's no proper transportation. Food waste is when it comes on into the market and then it's wasted because people buy too much and then they are wasting food. So I'm asking the question, how does food waste contribute to climate change? It reduces landfill space, okay, that's number 1. Second is it emits methane during decomposition. Third, it improves the compost quality. And fourth, it lowers food prices. So how do you think it's contributing to climate change, food waste? What does it emit when it is decomposing? Methane, right? And methane is one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases. Because normally when we talk about greenhouse gas, you think about carbon dioxide. Everybody talks about CO2. Yes, it is very important. That's what is usually measured. But there are also gases like nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, and methane, which are called short-lived climate pollutants, and also ozone. These actually have a much bigger impact on global warming. So if you take action to reduce methane, you will reduce global warming much more faster than by taking action on CO2. So the fact is that not we should ignore CO2. We need to reduce fossil fuels for sure. But by taking action on things that produce methane, and what are the biggest methane producers? It is agriculture. So it is rice, growing of rice, as well as livestock. You know that when cows, they belch, what is the gas that comes out? It is methane. So both livestock and rice, as well as this decomposing of food, these are the reasons why agriculture contributes to methane use. So one of the areas for research now is how to reduce the methane emission. Ninga control pandrela? Okay. Let's go to the next slide. I'll keep saying next slide. So I think by now you got an idea how climate change can actually introduce health risks and why the vulnerable populations are more impacted. So you can see that it's because of extreme weather events, it's because of heat waves, It's because of change in vectors like mosquitoes and air pollution, but it also has a disproportionate impact on women, on children, and on the elderly. Next. It also widens inequalities. Those who are already poor, who are already living on the edge, they are the ones who are likely to be more impacted. It also will, and we'll talk a little bit more about how women are disproportionately impacted. It also leads nowadays you'll find much more migration happening because people are not able to do agriculture. They are not able to actually earn enough from the land because of prolonged drought or because of repeated flooding. Next slide. So if you talk about three big threats today to the planet, one is climate change, but the other two are also very important: biodiversity loss and pollution. And the pollution includes plastic pollution, which is impacting especially in our water. Rivers and the oceans are getting full of plastic. In fact, it is now predicted that by 2050 there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Can you imagine a situation like that? And both the speakers who will speak after me today will be talking a little bit about biodiversity. Next. So we can skip this slide. I've already described the different impacts of climate change on health, but also on health systems, because that health centers also get impacted when there is a flood. Your primary health center, your hospital. I think some of you will remember that when Chennai had floods a few years ago, the basement of hospitals was flooded. The generators went off. There was power shut down, and people who were on ventilators in the ICU actually died because of that. So in the future, when we are building any hospitals or health centers, we have to keep in mind that this type of event is going to happen and we have to be prepared. Similarly, it was found in some cities during the summer heat. If you have the maternal and newborn ward on the top floor of the hospital, that babies and mothers were getting heat stroke because the heat was too much on the top floor. So when you're designing a hospital, you might want to keep such wards away from the direct impact of heat. So like that, you'll have to think through. Nowadays, when you're designing any kind of, especially urban planning, you really need to think about climate and how it's going to change in the future as you design your cities. And city like Chennai, which is a coastal city, we are surrounded by water bodies. Unfortunately, our urban design has been in such a way that we have completely ignored the traditional way in which we used to live, where water was able to flow. In fact, if you look back historically, Tamil Nadu had a beautiful system of waterways, and the Cholas and the Pallavas, they actually recognized and they built the canals so that all the lakes and water bodies are connected and ultimately can drain into the sea. But we have blocked all those pathways, and that's why the cities get flooded now. Next. So it's really important for designers to think about that. Next slide, please. Next slide. So there are, of course, a lot of predictions that heat-related deaths will go up, that waterborne disease-related mortality will go up. So I think we need to spend more time on what we are going to do. Next. So in India also there have been many analyses, particularly looking at heat impact. And this particular one, basically you can see that most of the districts in India today are prone to high heat stress, especially the ones that are colored in dark red. And it is in 2020, in the last 1 decade or so, 70% of Indian districts experienced 5 times more very warm nights, in the summer. And the night temperatures going up actually more dangerous than the daytime temperature going up. And also humidity. When you combine heat and humidity, then it becomes much more dangerous. And the reason is that you cannot evaporate your sweat. So if you cannot evaporate your sweat, the body cannot cool down. And the core body temperature keeps on rising. Next. Yeah, so this shows that, over the last 30, 40 years, the nighttime temperatures actually have risen more, than the daytime temperatures. Next. So the body responds, to heat basically by increasing the evaporation by sweating. And the heart also gets stressed. The heart starts pumping much more fast, and your skin actually also gets, the blood vessels on the skin actually dilate. But if this continues, then you start having an impact, which is, we can describe it as a heat stroke or a heat stress and a heat exhaustion. And if it is prolonged, then it leads to chronic strain on the heart. It causes inflammation. The immune system also gets impacted. And very importantly, there are mental health impacts as well. So these have been recognized, but in places like India or in other low and middle income countries, these studies have not really been well performed to see at what temperature, at what humidity do we start actually responding. Of course, it depends on your age. Like here in this audience, most of you are young, so your tolerance levels will be higher. But if there is a pregnant woman, if there is somebody who's over the age of 70 or a very young infant, their tolerance levels are going to be much lower. So they will get into a problem much faster. Next. So next slide. We did a quick study actually last year to look at what are the findings in India, how many people have looked at this problem, and we found certain striking findings, which was firstly that pregnant women, they have definitely much higher health risk. Both the baby suffers and the mother also suffers. We also found an increase in gender-based violence, domestic violence goes up actually with climate change. So that was very concerning to us. Again, it is impacting women, disproportionately. We found that children's health and education were impacted because schools closed down, sometimes for prolonged periods. Like we have these rain holidays. If it's 1 or 2 days, it's okay. But let us say you have flooding, which lasts for many weeks and the schools are closed. Or in Delhi, sometimes you'll find schools closing because of air pollution. Next slide. And so what we recommended was that we should have much more evidence generation on solutions in India. We need to, of course, understand the problem, but we also need to find solutions. So this slide basically, again, shows you the findings, which we need not go into the details now. Next slide. But again, it shows that women and children get impacted. Nutrition is impacted because the dietary diversity goes down, the diarrhea goes up. Immunization of children suffers, antenatal care suffers. So all of these will add up actually to health impacts. Next slide. Again, I talked about air pollution. It's not a problem only of Delhi or of the surrounding areas. It's across the country. You can see that South India is relatively better off. Part of that is because of the geophysical, you have the Himalayas and you have during winter months in North India, the air movement is much less. But still, if you look at WHO air quality standards, you'll find that most of the country does not meet the standard. And even the Indian air quality standard, which is about 40 micrograms per cubic meter, the WHO standard is 5 microgram per cubic meter. It actually, 70% of the country does not meet even the more relaxed standard. And it is known that exposure to PM 2.5, it does cut your life expectancy by several years. So it's quite urgent that we need to pay attention to air pollution. And part of it is, again, indoor air pollution. It is women in rural areas still cooking with biomass. Not everybody, even though they may have an access to a LPG, a gas cylinder, they cannot afford to use it on a regular basis. So still collecting firewood or dung and using that generates a lot of smoke, obviously impacting the woman who's cooking, but also going out into the atmosphere. Next slide. So these are some more facts and figures about air pollution and the fact that not enough is being done actually to control air pollution. Next slide. And WHO has now set some targets also that by 2040 we must reduce air pollution related deaths by half. So like I mentioned, air pollution is not only does not cause only respiratory problem, it even impacts things like dementia, diabetes. So if you see in the country, dementia is going up, diabetes is going up. One of the factors could be an increasing exposure to air pollution. And globally, it is shortening the life expectancy by 2 years. But as I said, in North India, it is estimated that actually 5 years of life is being cut because of air pollution. And of course, the contributors are the industrial sector, the transport sector, the construction sector because of dust, the indoor burning of biomass, and occasionally when there are fireworks, right? Or there is stubble burning by the farmers because they want to clear the field. All of this actually adds to the outdoor air pollution. Next. So you will have to take action at many different levels. Okay, next slide. So again, children are more impacted because their lungs are smaller, they're breathing more faster, and so there are much more toxic elements are going in. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I mentioned this at the beginning, the short-lived climate pollutants. Some of you correctly identified methane as an important gas, black carbon, tropospheric ozone, and hydrofluorocarbons. They remain in the atmosphere for a much shorter period than CO2, but they can actually warm the atmosphere many more times. So I think taking action on these is extremely important. Next slide. Yeah, so if you look at what are the threats to life expectancy in our region, that is in Bangladesh, Nepal, India, and Pakistan, tobacco used to be one of the big risk factors. You can see that relatively speaking, tobacco now is in the light gray. It is actually less. Then in the, it is in green. So tobacco is still an important risk factor. But the biggest risk factor today is the PM 2.5. Okay, that's in the red bars. And so this is why they say that air pollution is actually worse today than tobacco as a risk factor. Next. And when you have both heat and air pollution, then actually they're both together even deadlier. Yeah, next slide, please. So some studies from India again showing that as you increase the number of hot days per year, you find that the mortality which is occurring during that period also keeps going up. Next slide. And mental health, again, these are projections for 2 different countries, for the United States and Mexico, showing that if, as the temperatures go up over the next 30-40 years, the rate of suicide will also increase. We don't have such a projection for India, but it is quite possible. You can imagine that climate change leading to a lot of depression and anxiety, it could actually lead to also an increase in suicides. And we know that farmer suicides, for example, are very much linked to crop failure because of, again, either the rains failing or too much of rain and the crops getting destroyed, and the farmer has no way of paying back their debt, and they end up committing suicide. Next slide. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We did a study again earlier this year where we looked at health outcomes among women. We went and interviewed 3,500 women in 7 states of India. And we found that women who are living in very high heat vulnerability states had again the same reproductive health problems. They had problems during taking care of their menstrual health. They had more hysterectomy, that is removal of the uterus, that was higher, more gender-based violence. All of these factors which we expected were actually, these women all reported that they had these problems. Next slide. They also reported wage losses. You know, they could not go to work during the heat days, so they lost wages. And we also found out that many of the health centers are not equipped to deal with a heat stroke. You know, people come in with heat stroke, they don't have air-conditioned rooms, they don't have access to cold water, to ice. The health workers are also not trained. So we really need to expand our exposure and awareness. And in fact, Sri Muralidharan was talking about the training on the first aid and saving lives. I think it will be important also to include how do you resuscitate somebody who's fainted on the street because of exposure to heat. Every other day in the papers, you read about people fainting. They go for some function, they are sitting there and for many hours in the heat, maybe they don't have water or they don't have shade and they collapse. You have to cool them down immediately and hydrate them. Otherwise, it becomes actually difficult to, in the early stage, you'll be able to bring them back. But if you allow them to go into a advanced stage of a heat stroke, then either they are going to die or they will be left with a permanent brain damage. So I think more and more we are going to have this first aid kind of response where everybody on the street, your neighbor faints due to a heat, you should know what exactly to be done. And the first thing is to put them into a cool room and bring the body temperature down. And if they are conscious, make them drink water. Otherwise, starting the IV fluids, right away. Similarly, all our health centers need to be equipped. We also need to think about innovations, like people are coming out with different fabrics, cooling jackets, ways in which, especially those like policemen or people who have to be outdoors all the time, how do they keep their body temperature actually, at a reasonable level. Next slide. So this is a women's college, room full of women. So we should not go away thinking that women are going to be the victims of climate change. Yes, women are disproportionately impacted, but you can also be the change makers. You can also be the ones who actually demand and both create that change, in society. If you look at our tribal women, they are the ones actually with the greatest knowledge of the indigenous plants, of the crops which can survive and grow well in those regions. But we are forgetting all that traditional knowledge. We are moving to packaged foods, readily available foods, right? How many of you ate millets in the last 3 days? Can you please raise your hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10. I think there are about 200 girls here. Okay. So 10 of you have eaten millets. So can any one of you who ate millets say, why do you eat millets? Is it a habit at home or is it something that you decided you want to eat? One of you who raised your hands, can you say why you eat millets? It's a habit in your family. Excellent habit. Please don't change it. Yeah. A big clap. Yeah. So in the quiz, I asked you, which are the climate resilient crops? Is it rice, wheat, sugarcane, or millet? So answer was millets, right? So one good reason is, in the future, in the past, millets was a part of all our diet. Whichever part of India you lived in, some millet or the other grows over there. And we used to eat it. Our grandmothers and people used to eat it. Now slowly that is gone. But we have to bring it back. And Dr. Oliver is the expert on millets, so he can tell you much more about it. The other reason is it's more nutritious than rice or wheat. It has more protein. It also has more minerals, iron, zinc, calcium, and other micronutrients. You know that most girls in India are anemic. If all of you go and check your hemoglobin, you will be surprised. More than half of you will be anemic. You will have a hemoglobin less than 11. And that is mainly, of course, there is blood loss which happens for girls and women. So we have to compensate that by increasing our intake of iron. And rather than having a tablet, of course, you'll have a tablet if you're very anemic. But see that in your daily diet, you increase fresh fruits and vegetables, coarse cereals, nuts. If you're non-vegetarian, of course, you get from, egg or chicken or fish. But even if you are vegetarian, you have to consciously look for things which have a high content. For example, moringa ele. Moringa leaves is one of the richest sources of micronutrients, iron, vitamin A, as well as calcium. Similarly, ragi has very high calcium and also iron. But most of the time, what are we eating? You would like to buy something which is processed, available, fried, you can carry it with you, eat it, isn't it? So that in the long term does impact your health. So I think empowering yourself with knowledge is important not only for yourself but also your family, because you can change what your family is doing. Okay, next. So women are definitely key to building climate resilience in communities. Very often, women are the first responders. If you look at healthcare providers, majority are women. Most of the nurses, ashas, Anganwadi workers, they're all women. But unfortunately, women are not often, at the higher levels of decision making. So that definitely needs to change. Next slide. So here are some pictures from Jodhpur, from Ahmedabad, from places where the cities have decided to take action, where they realized a lot of people were actually dying during the summer months. So they now have shaded areas, they provide water, they are painting the roofs with a reflective paint. Next. They put out advisories. There are NGOs that are involved in this. Again, this is Mahila Housing Trust, is a women's NGO, training women on how to build climate resilience and how to conserve more water. Many different aspects. Yeah. Next slide. Okay, so in the end, what can all of us do? Next slide. So these are 10 solutions that are needed to mitigate climate change, which everyone should be aware of. I'm sure all of you know. Like, we need to retire our coal plants. We need to invest in clean energy. India is doing very well now in clean energy, by the way. About 50% of installed capacity now for energy comes from solar and renewables. So we are actually ahead of many other countries. But still, we still use a lot of coal because our population is growing. We need more energy, but more and more we must use renewable energy. Buildings can be decarbonized. The cement industry, steel and plastics, all of these actually contributing to fossil fuels. So they need to be you already mentioned electric vehicles, increasing public transport, biking, walking, etc. Aviation is a big contributor in shipping. So again, a lot of research is going on aviation fuel. Halting deforestation and restoring degraded lands, extremely important. Trees are the best carbon source. You'll hear about mangroves a little later from Dr. Bhomia. Mangroves are one of the biggest best ways to sequester carbon. We talked about reducing food loss and waste and improving agricultural practices. And of course, eating more plants and less meat. Now in India, again, per capita consumption of meat is not high. So this applies more to Western countries which are consuming too much of meat. Next slide. And we know that we're not at the 1.5 degree target, which we set in 2015. We are actually going to exceed that. That's going to have a bigger effect for countries like India. So while we have to do our bit, obviously Western countries have to do a lot more to reduce their emissions, because per capita emission, if you see, they are almost 6 to 7 times more than an average person in India. Next slide. And we talked about health co-benefits again. So this slide just shows you, for example, that if you plant trees and reduce deforestation, then what are the co-benefits? You can reduce the urban heat effect. You can reduce temperature. It has been shown that if you have more of water bodies and greenery within cities, you can reduce the temperature by 2, 3, even 4 degrees. You reduce the noise pollution. You increase exposure to nature. And you improve also mental health and lower the asthma and respiratory diseases. So similarly, if you have more cycling, walking, better public transport, you will improve health. So these are the different ways in which you get health co-benefits and also climate benefits. Next slide. So those are the actions we really need to look at. As individuals, you need to look at your own lifestyle and see whether you need to make a change in the way you eat, or how you're using energy at home or during transport. What small things can you do actually, which can benefit climate and also benefit your own health? And it's only if everybody acts together, that our future can be more secure. So I think that is my last slide. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are grateful to Dr. Soumya Swaminathan for her thoughtful reflections on impact on climate change, on health, especially on women and children, and ask us to be the change makers to act with both knowledge and care. Thank you, ma'am. It's a privilege to invite Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, Chairman, to honor Dr. Soumya Swaminathan with a memento in appreciation of her presence and inspiring address.
We're just sharing the picture of her beloved father of Soumya ma'am when he was here in our college.
We are delighted to continue with the next part of today's event. To introduce our second speaker, Dr. E.D. Israel Oliver King, we welcome Dr. L. Shakila, Staff Council Secretary, aided, Head and Associate Professor, PG Research Department of Zoology.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. It's both an honor and privilege to introduce a visionary whose work has been refined the contour of agro-biodiversity and community resilience across South Asia and beyond, Dr. E.D. Israel Oliver King, Director of Biodiversity at the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. Dr. King is a distinguished ethnobotanist with over 25 years of pioneering research and field engagement. His portfolio spans globally recognized study support by FAO, Biodiversity International, and Wageningen University, addressing critical themes such as market-driven conservation, agro-biodiversity payments, and community empowerment. His leadership in the FAO assessment in Korapet and Kuttanadu had brought international attention to the Indians' ecological heritage. He has helmed international collaboration with SDC Switzerland and CIFOR-ICRAF Canada and IFAD focusing on farming conservation, value chain development, and gendered livelihood strategies that supports rural flexibility against food security, insecurity, and climate change. As South Asia coordinator for the FAO initiative, he has shaped regional strategies for biodiversity management and resilience. Currently, Dr. King leads transformative program on tribal livelihood enhancement through integrated agroforestry, millet-based farming system, and women-led sustainability model, supports by NABARD, ICAR, and NASI. His work with the FAO initiative and Unforgotten Food and the fact accelerated reflects his commitment to restoring ecological wisdom to the global food discourse. Beyond his research, Dr. King is a mentor to emerging change makers through the Borlaug Ron Fellowship and SBI Youth for India, and a guiding force in Envis Center of Excellence on Scared Forests. His core passion lies in the habitat conservation, indigenous knowledge system, and sustainable natural resources. Please join me in welcoming a scholar, a strategist, and a steward of biodiversity, Dr. E.D. Israel King Oliver. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's a privilege and honor to be here before this august audience. First of all, let me thank the chairman of the Ethiraj College and the staff and scholars and young students here gathered here. Thanks for this opportunity to be here. Some of our thoughts related to the community biodiversity management. This morning, our chairperson, Dr. Soumya, spoke about the importance of realization of impact on climate and its health impact how it is actually, we have to actually mitigate and manage the risk of climate. From that point of view, she has shared many suggestions. I just wanted to touch upon certain aspects. Uh, yeah. So, just I wanted to share some thoughts related to the crops. I hope many of you are coming from the urban background, and probably some of you are from the semi-urban and little rural areas as well. As we all see that the recent times, there are many crops have been valorized as an opportunity crop. Let me just ponder over the terminology that we use today. If you know, in the history, in the agricultural history, I hope many of these students here are from the biology background, botany or zoology, to some extent commerce and linguistics and history, maybe others, it's all interlinked. If you look at the agriculture history in India, mid 60s, there was a revolution. It's called Green Revolution. And there was a time India faced famine, and there was a person called Professor MS Swaminathan, and his very pioneering work, on ensuring food security in India with the mission of Green Revolution that has happened. So slowly, India has become a food secured country. So there are two crops he has taken as for research and extension and development. What are those two crops? One is paddy, rice. The other one is wheat. His work on wheat is a very pioneering one, way back in mid 60s, that ensured food security in northern India. And later on, he worked on rice in terms of increasing its productivity and subsequently the profitability for farmers. So the primary focus for ensuring food security through two crops. We are all new gens, right? In 90s, born after 90s, most of you are here. So our food system is often based on two crops, rice and wheat, and to some extent maybe maize, to some extent. And some vegetables and known some spices and so on. But there is an alarming condition in the recent times. Two kind of risk we are facing, particularly the South Asian countries. One risk is related to climate risk, what Dr. Soumya spoke about. The other risk is nutrition poverty. We are eating a lot. We are eating enough. We are filling our stomach, but what we eat is more important. From that point of view, if you look at it, mostly wheat-based or rice-based. So in that context, there are recent times, post-90s onwards, there are several research across the globe, including Food and Agriculture Organization, Biodiversity International. There are many CGIAR institutions. They have actually invested their energy, time and resources on opportunity crops. When we talk about opportunity, what is opportunity? There are certain crops that has got its own traits in terms of climate resilience and also ensuring nutritional security. Professor Swaminathan talk about three kind of nutrition. When we talk about three important elements of nutrition, one is the caloric deficiency, then protein energy malnutrition. The third one is hidden hunger. So India is secured with caloric deficiency, addressing that through rice and wheat. Okay, so we have enough calorie. The second aspect later on, after 80s, we have given more thrust on protein energy, addressing protein energy malnutrition. Many pulse program actually targeted to address the yield gap, enough sufficient protein rich pulses available for the food. The third aspect is most important, That is what we call it as a hidden hunger. We take more food, but not nutri-dense food. That is what called as a hidden hunger. So where is that nutrient comes from? It can come from diverse crops, diverse portfolio of crops, greens, green leafy vegetables, tubers, mushrooms. If you look at the portfolio of crop genetic diversity, these are the crops can give you micronutrients in our foods. So post 90s, there was a realization. People have started investing their funds, money, energy, and started working with communities. When we talk about community, who are they? Where they learn from? They learn from indigenous community. Who are indigenous community in Indian context? We call them as tribes, tribal community. In Tamil Nadu, probably some of you may know the tribal habitats. I will tell you some examples here. Very close by, Gudiyam caves are there, Chengalpattu hills are there. If you go a little further, the entire Eastern Ghats, Jawad hills, Pachai hills, Kolli hills, Erkadu hills, there are many hills are there, Malayali tribes are there. And similarly on the coast, there are many tribal communities are there. So the opportunity crops and species, what we learn is from the indigenous community. I will move on further a little bit. The term that probably some of you may like to know is called as NUS. I frequently use this term. What is NUS? Neglected and underutilized. So this is a little political term, and globally people used to use this. So there are certain species for research and development which is neglected in the in the century. So they are neglected from funding, neglected from research, neglected from extension action. Over a period of time, limited market attraction and so on. So therefore, it was neglected in the mainstreaming pathway. The other aspect is related to underutilization. So over a period of time, so that happened, certain crops are given more importance. The local communities have given lesser importance. So therefore, it has become a underutilization. So this concept of NUS, globally people have identified many crops, therefore it has to be mainstreamed. So what are the crops? I will just place you on an international, then we will come to India. In the recent times, in the last 20 years, there are certain crops have actually become mainstream in the food system. If you look at the species here, it's called as teff. Teff in Ethiopia. In the Ethiopian landscape, it's a high hill zones. In the landscape, teff is the crop, just like, or some sort of, finer version of millets only. And it's used as a dosa. And Ethiopian families used to have a very large dosa they make out of it and make it as a flour, and then they convert it into dosa and other stuff. So this is one of the crop internationally in the recent times have got mainstream as a part of food, and it gained momentum in terms of research and development. The other one is that quinoa. Many of you probably searching in the market in the recent times in the city area. So this is Andean grain. Andean lands in Bolivia and many part of that the world, people used to grow diverse portfolio of crop in quinoa, and it has got a very important nutrition property. This has got mainstream. The other one is that in the Mediterranean region in Central America, this is another crop called as a spicy rocket plant, and this is also mainstreamed in the recent times. If there are botanists here and biochemists here, and you can look at this literature, I will share this presentation with the faculty here, and I'm happy to know that the principal is coming from the biological science background, and probably some of you can have this presentation with you. There are plenty of crops. There are Indianized food system, that, for example, GNP, moringa, Dr. Soumya this morning spoke about that, and amaranthus. There are many species are considered as labeled as NUS. In the recent times, people are calling it as opportunity crop, And until recent times, it was called as NUS. Now, to change the narrative, instead of giving this neglected and underutilized, now the narrative is slowly changing to opportunity. So we can see that there are plenty of opportunity across the world. This paper talks about the challenges in the supply chain environment, in the supply chain end. What are the bottlenecks in the conservation, in the production system? What are the bottlenecks that is related to these crops and so on? And come to India. India, you know, in the recent times, in the Prime Minister of India has positioned this portfolio of millets in the international arena. 2023, we call it as the International Year of Millets. And 2018, we call it as a National Year of Millets. And that has happened because of 20 years of work that has been carried out in India to valorize many of these millets. And it's very happy to see there are some students this morning raise their hand that they are consuming millets as a part of their daily diet. And it is a part of our traditional food heritage. And some of the families are still continuing. And if you look at this India map, there are 9 different species of millets. In Tamil, if I need to say that, Samai, Thinai, Varagu, Panivaragu, Kudiraivalli, Kadaikanni. There are about 9 different kinds of millets across India in different states we are growing. And each millet, there is an intra-specific diversity. And I think many of you know Tamil here. I will just take one example. Thinai. In Sangam literature, we used to talk about Thinayum, Thenum, Thenum, Thinai Mavu. Madam dan solranga. So Thenum, Thinai Mavum is, since long, it has been a part of their food culture. We know Thinai is called as Italian millet, but tribal community, they have wide variability within Thinai. I will tell about that. In Thinai itself, Sendinai, Palandinai, Korandinai, Killandinai, Mosethinai, Mapillai Thinai. Okay, so all these varieties are there by local etymology, by local name. Every name has got its roots, right? So they've got. So whatever I said now, all these variants of Thinai itself, it's coming from one simple landscape called as Kolli Hills. Within a kind of range of 250 square kilometer, the tribal community, Malayali tribes, they lives there. Based on the agricultural typology, different typology, microclimatic condition, soil factor, food heritage, they have been evolving different varieties of millets. Okay, so this is important when we look at conservation of crop genetic resources. So moving on from there, you see some of them probably wish to know what are they. The sorghum, in Tamil we call it as solam, pearl millet, kambu, finger millet, kelvaragu or ragi, or in some people they call it as aryam also, and minor millets. You see this is major millet, we are terming like that. Here you see this minor millet. Why it is so? It is not by size. It is by kind of providing impetus for research and development. They call it as a major millet, and over a period of time it has been grown in larger landscape, many part of the North India. There are minor millets here that you see, little millet or Thinai, foxtail millet, barnyard millet, we call it as Kudiraivalli, and Varagu. In the recent times, Kodo millet is Varagu. These 2 millets are becoming very, very popular. Why? Because people used to say this is good for diabetes. And it is rich in fiber and also antioxidants. So people used to advise, many of the doctors, they used to advise eating habits of Kudiraivalli frequently and also Varagu. That is good in terms of managing diabetes as well. And there is another species called as proso millet. It is restrictively grown in certain only hill slopes. So I will move on just to show you the advantage in terms of when you compare to rice and wheat and maize. These are the major 3 staples across the globe people used to eat. When you compare this with other millets, you see I was talking about hidden hunger, solving hidden hunger. It is nutri-dense in terms of crude fiber, most of the millets, and also, calcium, particularly the finger millet, kelvaragu. A student here, she spoke about having the habit of, the ragi modda or ragi kali, okay, or ragi gruel. And it is very rich in calcium. Calcium is very essential, particularly for women, people used to say, because over a period of time, we leach out, the bone strength, bone strength weakens. And the calcium is the basic need. And eating habit of, the ragi is very, very important. And also you see the other side is that the iron, for example, in pearl millet, kambu, it's rich in iron. And also you look at the barnyard mineral, Kudiraivalli, rich in iron. So it's a powerhouse of nutrients. It is not, and at the same time you have to look at the other side of the coin. They are all climate resilient crops. They are very hardy crops. Even in the remote location, very poor soils, very limited rainfall, these crops can survive and provide livelihood for tribal community. At the same time, it provides nutri-dense food for everyone. So therefore, we see that I will not get into this. Just to pass through this slide, if you look at this, disease prevention point of view, if you look at it, most of the millets are rich in fiber and micronutrients. Two factors people have assessed. That this comes from deep science research. And one aspect is managing diabetes. The other one is cardiovascular diseases. The third dimension is that strengthen bone. In terms of orthopedic issue, it can reduce vulnerability. So millets are good from that point of view. These are the major three diseases. And some of the research also targeting for supporting, helping out with the cancer and so on. And what MSSRF does and where we are located. Sorry, I did not introduce that. MS Swaminathan Research Foundation headquarters located in Tharamani, very nearby Adayar, in campus, founded by Professor MS Swaminathan. Dr. Soumya is our current chairperson. Our research foundation is actually working with communities, translating science to research. We have programs called Biodiversity Programme, Biotechnology, Eco-Technology, Environmental Science and Technology, Agriculture, Food and Nutrition, Climate Science, Food Security Program, and Coastal Science, Coastal and Fishery programs, and also Economics, Gender, and also Collective Action. These are the broad spectrum of activity MS Swaminathan Research Foundation does. And we invite you students to be a part of that journey. We heard from the principal that you're graduating this year and moving forward for masters. There is immense potential for you to join hands in the research endeavors. And coming back to this, you see a kind of a travel. This is what we call it as a 4C approach. I was talking about mainstreaming this crop. How we can do, how science graduates and arts graduates, you can participate, commerce graduates, you can participate. The different, the contours talks about conservation. Professor Swaminathan talk about 4C, conservation, cultivation, consumption, and commerce. Any value chain for that matter, any graduate students, any postgraduate students, they have their space in terms of research and also advancement in terms of education. You can become a conservation scientist, you can become a production scientist, you can become a scientist that you can see through the difficulty of women and vulnerable communities, look at the gender angle and provisioning of technology that can support them. And the fourth angle is related to commerce. Nutrition profiling is another area. Nutraceutical industry is welcoming you. The fourth aspect is related to commerce. So Professor Swaminathan used to say, just talking about mere conservation may not be enough. We need to integrate it with economics. Good ecology, it's a good economics. Professor Swaminathan used to say. So there are four contours the MS Swaminathan Foundation we used to research. I will just pass through some slides to give you a glimpse of how we do. It's a know-how, do-how and know-how aspect of it. We work with the indigenous communities in different landscapes. I spoke about intragenetic diversity. Samai, and then you have the variability of Thinai, and then Kudraivali, and then Kelvaragu. One picture you see, it's all come from Kolli Hills. And then you see, unless otherwise we work with the indigenous communities, we cannot learn. This is what we call it as a co-learning process. As a scientist, we also share some, our thoughts and knowledge with them. And also we learn from a lot. So it's a co-learning process, and we work with the indigenous communities in different language. And then another aspect is that how we can learn. This is one parcel of mixed cropping system. This simple parcel is an example of how indigenous community, they manage climate risk. The simple parcel has got multiple crops. It has got Thinai, Kelvaragu, some of the pumpkins, and also cucurbits and also beans. So if precipitation alters, one crop fails, the other crop will support their food security. So this is what we call it as indigenous knowledge. So our farmers and indigenous community, they have wide range of cultivation practices. Unfortunately, our academic system is not able to fully document that dying wisdom. So professor used to say, the dying wisdom of cultivation practices, culture practices in the context of fishery needs to be documented and understand what is the logic behind of community doing that, how we can improve on in terms of science. So this is another area where scholars and students, we can participate. Then third dimension, the other dimension is conservation, is that community conservers, custodian farmers, and they have the knowledge, and what we do, we work with them and make them as a collective. The collectives, they conserve seeds in the form of community seed bank. Many of the you may know this word, NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Many of the nature-based non-governmental organizations, environmental non-governmental organizations, particularly in agro-biodiversity area, they are actually now forming community seed bank through community seed network. It is not only seed sharing network and also knowledge network. So that is one of the way we can retain and restore our wealth of plant genetic resources on farm. So we form them as a group, and where many of the students and scholars and interns, they participate and understand from them as well. Then there is another important area, is that we always see that only the scholars needs to be popularized, or they needs to be recognized. So there is a need for recognizing custodian farmers, custodian tribal dwellers, those who are actually toiling on the ground and managing the seed system. That is where the entire the food security chain comes from. So MSSRF used to document and support through different mechanisms in different spaces as well, and recognized internationally. I was talking about the community seed bank. They used to keep, they used to store, and they used to serve and exchange. And this is another reason, biological scientists, they know when the seeds are there on farm, it leads to a natural evolution process. The natural evolution happens only when the farmers are handling seeds and crops with them. So that helps a lot. Okay, so I'll just move on. We also work on some dimensions related to improving productivity. Always farmers, they look for enough income, a surplus income. The surplus income can be achieved through improving its productivity. So some of the research that we do on the ground with the community, we call it as a participatory research. We gain from them, we also share with them. The participatory research dimension is another area. I will skip this one. I know yeah. This is probably some of the social science student can look at it. We call it as a gender dimensions in agriculture, in PGR, plant genetic resource management. What is that? Who is doing farming? Who is managing plant genetic resources? Often when we go to the field, whenever we get into the villages, we often see that most of the productive work and reproductive work and caring work, these triple burden is always in the hands of women, not with the men. So they say that when there is a need for conservation, involvement of women, they say we don't have time. They wanted to replace the drudgery with the simple technology. Simple technology can solve their drudgery related issue, the time poverty related issue. So there are equipments that we co-design with them that helps community, particularly women, solve problem related to drudgery and also the time poverty. This is very important aspect of it. When we talk about feminization of agriculture and women burden and the drudgery and time poverty, simple tools and techniques that can go to the communities that will really help them. Okay, some of the nutrition students may be here and probably you are into nutrition profiling and product development and linking with market and so on. But originally, if you look at the tribal cuisine and the traditional knowledge of traditional recipe, this is another area very interesting. Globally, people are now looking at it, documenting the process of making the traditional recipe. அவங்க என்ன பண்றாங்க உங்களுக்கு தெரியுமா? களி கிண்டுறாங்க. Have you ever seen kindifying kali? Okay, probably you would have done it in the at home, I don't know, or your mother or sister or elderly people. So it's very interesting, process based, and it has got nutrition dimension as well. It is not just making a kali out of ragi. There is a process involved. We have to soak it, keep it over night, and then it has to germinate, and then you have to little bit of drying, and then you have to put it in pot, and then there is a heat, that dimension is there, then water away, all that processes. So that involves a lot of, it is indigenous knowledge, it is a tribal knowledge, it is a folk knowledge. Unless we understand this, moving ahead with the new form of recipe, now many star hotels are looking for traditional recipe, and students of the nutrition science or the product development, they can look into this, one of the very interesting area, go to the field, document this kind of knowledge is very, very important. And that is what now when we talk about mainstreaming traditional foods, that is another area one can definitely do. What we do, so we work with communities and document that, and then give them space for empowerment in terms of value addition. And the women group, many of you probably know the word self-help group or farmer producer organization, FPOs. That is a space when you get out of the college, probably one has to work with them. So they are all empowered in terms of making a new recipe. They have their traditional recipe and how the new recipe can be made. And as a scholars of commerce, how we can participate in terms of labeling, in terms of branding, in terms of getting FSSAI certification, in terms of giving them visibility. For example, you see the word Kolli Hills Natural Food. Similarly, we have traditional food across the corner of the country, and how these local communities can give more support. This morning, our chairperson of the college, he was talking about local bioeconomy, circular economy. This is what the circular economy is all about. How we can give importance for the local community to make their own product through their labeling and so on. And then exposure, giving them exposure. Many of the research and development organizations and NGOs, they engage this kind of work. They take the communities to the high profile research and development institution, give them exposure and so on. And also the other dimension is that the infrastructure that you see, we work with the state government support system. There are many schemes are there leveraging that for the benefit of local community. We do that. So this is a chain of activity that we do. And another aspect is that this is very, very important. That is what we witnessed in the recent times. The knowledge erosion, the knowledge gap. From the previous generation to the current generation, the knowledge is not actually flowing. So the knowledge gap, how we can address, working with children. And like we talk today, as you are absorbing this, we need to really work with the young kids and children, particularly at the school level. So they may need to be made aware of this importance of this. The food, the agriculture or foraging, connecting to food and then nutrition and then climate, that entire chain needs to be imparted with the school children. So that is another area where we really work, and also engaging them. So many of the farmers or tribals, when we work with them, what they say that we have limitations. We don't get enough opportunity to get into different platforms. So we take them from food, the street play to creating opportunity to meet international audience and so on. So just I'll pass it here. So how this has begun? In 90s, Professor Swaminathan initiated Swaminathan Research Foundation in 1889, and 94 onwards we have started discussing about the importance of agrobiodiversity. And Professor Swaminathan is the principal proponent of mainstreaming in US in India. And if you look at this calendar, the milestone, way back in 69 onwards, Professor Swaminathan, when he was working on the Green Revolution, he was actually started the millet program in the country in way back in 89. And 79, ICRAF on millets, a newest crop established. And also 99, Professor Swaminathan got people in India and started looking at the different contours of NUS in the country. And until 2019, Professor was a warrior of making this NUS and mainstream at the national level and international level. And he was very supportive until very recent. When he was 96, I remember, he has given this international endorsement for supporting agrobiodiversity at the international level. And this is a book, probably if someone is inspired by this and wants to learn more about this agrobiodiversity for food and nutritional security, to some extent climate. If you look at this book, was co-edited by us with Professor Swaminathan and has got 36 chapters drawing examples across the world and popularizing different kind of NUS that can support climate, nutrition and health and well-being. And this is the very latest one, and probably some of the scholars here may be helpful. Moving forward, 2050 targets. The FAO has come out with a global manifesto on forgotten foods. And this talks about 4 aspects of it. One aspect is related to co-creation. That is what we are talking about. The second one is the new approach to forgotten food and neglected crop through the value chain and innovative research program. And these are the 4 major areas where the students and scholars you can participate. I think I stop here, and if there are some questions, definitely we can interact. Thank you very much. Maybe a couple of questions, if there are.
Good afternoon, sir. So, in the nutritional value literacy சொன்னீங்க, how the students are accepting it. இப்போ generally they don't find the millets as so interesting to consume. So, what was your experience while conveying it?
Yeah, that's good. So, certainly, what we do is that we used to, in the region wherever we work, and also the places where we advocate, 2 melas that we conduct. We call it as a seed mela or food mela. And we involve local community, the tribal community, to organize it. MSSRF volunteers, staffs, they will facilitate that. And interestingly, we also engage the local schools, mostly tribal residential school, rural schools, children. We conduct in the premises of the school itself. And we have the portfolio of all the crops. The children, interestingly, they will come and touch. Even though they are the tribal children, they have rare occasions to touch all the varieties. They touch, they smell, they taste. Okay. And then they talk each other. And then we create a platform for, just after conducting that exposure, we will organize them for exchanging their views and ideas. And there, they express they have lost many varieties. and they sit with their parents. This is one way of actually doing it. The same platform we used to conduct a food mela also. The traditional food, some of the value-added food, they used to taste it. So this is one of the way we work closely with the kids as well as their parents. Many of the rural settings that works well. This is a point of, this is what we call it as one of the entry point activity. So whenever we talk about conservation, it's an uphill task. It's a very difficult one because they are moving away from the conservation for many reasons. So if as a scientist, as a person, or the institution looking for longer term impacts that happens in that landscape, if we need to engage with them on conservation, there are certain entry point activity as I have, so that is important. And the children also, we give them opportunity for children to engage with the action that we undertake. Let it be a seed bank or some other varietal plots or some cookery programs and so on. They are the part of it. That is a way actually we can translate knowledge from the previous generation to the next generation.
This question is from consumer point of view. The question is from consumer point of view. There are various price range for these products. How to find out which is original, sir?
Okay. Yeah, of course, that is a very challenging area as far as the marketing of these crops are concerned. See, there is a saying, the too much of anything is good for nothing at some point in time. There must be some balance. And the quality check aspect of it, you are asking about. The original product, that's a dimension that you are talking about. Market always attracts, when there is something that can be saleable for the common goods. So there are issues related to adulteration, and there is no proper labeling. There is no proper scientific labeling also. And when we talk about processing, I'll come a little deeper on that. Processes, they never know how much to be processed. Particularly if you look at the millets, we can classify that into two different kinds of millets. Single seed coated millets, multiple seed coated millets. The processing methods are different. For example, ragi, it's a pulverizing method. Directly you can convert it into flour. But in case of varagu, it's 6 or 7 seed coated. It has to go for the dehulling processes, and there are standardization based on codex standard, like for other crops. Now Government of India has developed codex standard also, how much to be processed, what should be the level of moisture to be retained, how much to be, how much other particles can be allowed. Everything is standardized. But when it comes to application, there is always a leakage. This is one of the challenging area. One way of doing is that creating awareness. I was talking about 9 different species, and many people doesn't know. They know only one thing: millets are good. Millets are good for diabetes, good for this one, that one. But which millet is for what, and how much to be consumed, and in what format it has to be consumed, and what kind of processes one has to go through. So this is an area, probably a lot of engagement with institutions, communities, particularly for marketing personnels. There is a ethical marketing. For that matter, that aspect of it is still lacking in our context. The ethical processing, ethical marketing is the area, is where probably a lot of science has to go. Because they are using certain determinant. People are longing for nutrition. People are longing for health. So how I can make more money out of it? What is the shortcut? So this is related to mostly ethical related aspect of it. But if you ask me a question that do we have enough science? Yes. Do we have enough policy regulated? Yes. But implementation in terms of action, there is a lot of gap that has to be addressed.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm from the business administration department. So from the business point of view, does it have any scope to pursue this career in future?
100%. 100%. And I would say it's a novel research area and development area. Right from street food to internationally accredited star hotels, particularly from the food science point of view. I will tell you a few things. You maybe definitely know about the National Institute of Nutrition, NIN, in
Yes.
Hyderabad. And they are having a research wing. They are only targeting research for tribal foods, tribal knowledge-based food. They are working on nutrition profiling. As an academician, if you want to pursue, that is the area you can definitely look at it. And CFTRI, Center for Food Technology Research Institute in Mysore, and also Central Defense Research Institute. Everyone is having a high profile nutrition profile laboratory. That is one area as a nutritionist you can look at it. The second, maybe if there are linguistics, from the literature, they can document, or the media personnel, they document about the tribal food heritage, because there is a lot of gap between the nutrition scientist and the documentation, and you can work together. And probably chemist, people come from the food chemist or chemist point of view. When you go for a master's in chemistry, this is another area of food chemistry. There is a lot of scope. When you come to marketing, the last peg of my presentation, if you look at it, all that conservation, production, value chain, nutrition profiling, all done. How this can be labeled? We are in the era of marketing and labeling. So how this can be labeled uniquely? We are talking about GI, geographical indication area, one area. And I did not extend my presentation into certain novel areas now government of India is coming from. We call it there is an act called Protection of Plant Variety and Farmers' Rights Act that only talk about farmers' rights, particularly indigenous community rights, and the land races and farmers' varieties. And there are varieties I spoke about, and each variety is now registered with the government of India. It has got a connection in terms of recognition, and this registered variety can be also get into market. You imagine ICT person here in this gathering, imagine developing an app and that can document this traditional food recipe and connecting with market. There is ample opportunity. This is how after the graduation or post-graduation, how we can connect with the existing opportunity. It is not just an opportunity crop, the entire value chain, how we can integrate and participate.
Thank you, sir.
I'm from economics department, and this question is from policy implementation side. A few months ago, we had an endowment lecture, sir, in which a professor proved that in most of the 100 days program we have in India, most of the workers are exploited there. So in such a case, are the tribal people involved here? Is there any board to address these people, sir?
I think if I'm getting that question right, you are talking about MNREGA program.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the question is that how we can connect this kind of work with that. Yes. Yeah, there are changes have happened from the inception of the MNREGA program, and I'm not getting into the leakages aspect. There are some weaker areas of that, but there is a lot of improvement has happened in the recent times, particularly managing even the individual titled parcel, how the local community, particularly the landless or the beneficiary of MNREGA program, they can not only just participate in the common property resource management and also individual properties, in terms of changing the landscape from the NRM point of view, natural resource management point of view. And many of the agroforestry programs and also the watershed programs, the MNREGA program can benefit them. It all finally depend on state to state variabilities are there. Policy is there, policy is good, but when it comes to action, implementation, the state level variabilities are there and problems are there, but definitely the program is good from two angles. We are actually, the program supports for the most vulnerable community, giving them scope for living for at least through wages of 100 days. And at the same time, many of the common resource properties are managed in the rural areas. The tribal habitats, the panchayat leader, they are taking this, the individual farmers. And then we can also see that how this biodiversity can be integrated in such forestry. Need not be a monoculture, it can be a polyculture, it can be integrated agroforestry systems that can benefit throughout the year. The farmers now, being economists or policymakers, the challenge is that how we can give, support system for the entire year. The agroforestry provides a scope for that, and they can make a sustainable livelihood out of that. And where this MNREG program and so on, they can be definitely leveraged.
Now, suddenly we shift our dietary pattern to consuming these kinds of food. So, how effective do you think it will be?
Yeah, I'm not, specialist
but
on
then,
that, 100%. I know I take back on that from that point of view. But having worked with, fellow researchers in this space, what they suggest is that making transition from the regular food to that, trial is, you try with that. Most maybe advisable is that consult with your physician first and then try out certain things, because there are certain proteins and then the anti-nutrient properties of some of the millets that may immediately you switch to certain food groups that may harm you in terms of digestion. So particularly I didn't talk about the anti-nutrient properties. Okay. It's all depending on how you process that. So you need a popping method, you have a soaking method, you have a frying method, you have a germination method. It is not just like, taking the rice and cook. So there are processes involved. So better consult with nutritionist and also your family physician first, because they know our system. And based on that, the slow transition. If you accept by yourself, it works for you, then you can definitely continue.
Thank you, sir.
But certainly I'm taking back, I'm not an expert on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Your valuable message. A timely reminder that biodiversity and sustainability are essential to public health and food security. Let us increase the use of opportunity crops such as millets for removing nutritional poverty. May I now invite Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, Chairman, to present a memento to Dr. Oliver King as a gesture of heartfelt appreciation. I request all the dignitaries to please join us in honoring Dr. Oliver King. Thank you. To introduce our third speaker, Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia, a wetland biogeochemist and a former senior scientist at CIFOR-ICRAF, we welcome Dr. B. Priyadarshini, Staff Secretary Aided, Associate Professor, Department of English.
Good afternoon. It is my distinct honor to introduce a global expert in the science of climate adaptation and nature-based solutions, Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia. Dr. Rupesh is a highly distinguished scientist at the Centre for International Forestry Research, where he serves as a blue carbon and climate change expert within the Climate Change Energy and Low Carbon Development Group. He's a masterful wetland biogeochemist whose life's work is dedicated to protecting the tropical wetlands, which is our planet's most vital carbon reserves. He has spent over 2 decades conducting pioneering, on-the-ground research across more than a dozen countries, from the peatlands of the Peruvian Amazon to the mangrove forests of India Indonesia, and West Central Africa. Dr. Rupesh's findings do not just fill academic journals, but they directly inform international policies. He's a co-scientist in the Sustainable Wetlands Adaptation and Mitigation Program, providing crucial data to global leaders on how to manage these vital ecosystems. His scholarly contributions are published in top-tier peer-reviewed international journals, including the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and Science Advances. His research is essential for refining His research is essential for refining national greenhouse gas emission factors and guiding the inclusion of mangroves in national climate strategies. He's also renowned for his work on coastal resilience, demonstrating how mangroves act as superheroes, not just for carbon storage, but also for coastal protection against sea level rise and extreme weather events. His expertise is built on a foundation of elite scholarship. He holds a PhD in soil and water sciences from the University of Florida, where his dissertation earned him a Best Dissertation Award. He also earned dual master's degree from the esteemed University of Oxford and Jawaharlal Nehru University. Please join me in giving an incredibly warm welcome to a scientist who's helping nations harness the power of nature to secure our future, Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's very embarrassing to hear such a long introduction, but thank you so very much for your generosity. Let me first thank you who has come here, and I know we are past 1 p.m. or close to lunchtime, so bear with me. I'm also hungry, but I will tell you interesting story which will be worth your time. Let me also thank Chennai International Centre, India Potash Limited, Ethiraj College, and MSSRF that made this possible. So before I jump into my presentation, I must like to say that this is a very, very special occasion for me. During, say, last 10, 15 years of my career, I have attended many seminars, conferences, events. This is the first time where the gender balance is more in the favor of women. So let's clap for that. I would like to keep it this way because I've always been proposing that very often in science, particularly in the field of research, it's very often male dominated. So one biggest take-home message that you can take today is to be proactive, find your space and make name for yourself in any field that you choose. So having that said, let's jump into my presentation. Today I'll be talking about climate change and coastal wetlands and why mangroves matter in this area. So let me see if I can figure this out. So basically, I'll try to keep it short, but my presentation will have introduction where we'll talk about One Earth, wetlands, climate change, then ecosystem services. You have heard two terms, climate adaptation and climate mitigation, and sustainable development goals, and then ongoing research monitoring, scientific training, and youth, and then finally, some take-home messages. I believe this is a picture that every one of us here have seen it and recognizes. This is the planet Earth. It's also called blue planet. And this is called blue planet because of the abundance of water. You know, this is the picture which was taken when humanity was able to go in space and then cameras can look back on Earth. That is known as one of the seminal moments where the whole humanity, our society, global consciousness became very, very concerned about the world from this viewpoint. So it's very important about the perspective and vantage point. Whenever you look at any problems and you are looking for solution, it's very important where you are looking at it. So this is just to set the stage because we are in a very important time. And as I just mentioned, we live on a blue planet. This is an artist's imagination of a very pristine natural setting where you see water is taking more than half of the slide. And what is important here is that you don't see a piece of plastic or any pollutant. So this is what natural world was before us humans came and interfered with it. So with that image, with that perspective in mind, let's see what we can do in terms of our actions, in terms of our observation to make this place better for everyone, not just for humans, but also for all the biodiversity, the trees, the birds, the little creatures. So basically, I will be dwelling on wetlands. Wetlands, as the term suggests, it's where water meets land. It's a very unique ecosystem. It's a very dynamic ecosystem. It is very functionally very different ecosystem than land or than a lake or any water body. So these wetlands are important because of the interactions between water, soil, living organisms, biota, and that imparts an important characteristics in terms of the biogeochemical reactions that take place, in terms of what reactions take place during the night time, during the daytime, during different seasons, during different weather patterns. So all of that provides, it's a very unique, very special conditions where new elements form, new reactions happen, and that provides us with a lot of important ecosystem services. What is important here to note is, although wetland is water plus land, but it is a classic example where the sum of parts is more than the total. So this is very important to remember. You can't just consider it's just a land which has got wet. So why wetlands matter? Why do we care about it? Why should we be very concerned about wetlands? Because wetlands provide a lot of services. They provide because of the wetlands in our landscape, our water security is ensured. Because they recharge groundwater. Because they provide special habitats for a lot of biota, lot of biodiversity. Because they are sources of fish, food, and fiber. Because they also help as filters for wastewater treatment. So they provide a lot of these services which otherwise will cost a lot of money if we want to do it in a commercial, in an industrial manner. So that's why they are important. They are also important because they provide a lot of ecosystem services that we hardly value. We do not have an economic value, but they provide a lot of those services. And there have been a lot of examples where by removing wetlands from a city environment, from an urban environment, a lot of problems have caused. What you see, flooding happens during extreme weather events, is also one of the reasons why wetlands in the landscape have been paved over and they have been substantially removed. So they provide a lot of these benefits that are very important and essential for our living. As long as we value them, as long as we recognize them, then only we can take care of it. So now I'm switching just a slight gear and introducing the concept of climate change, which is also one of the topic for today's seminar, which has already been elaborated. So what is climate? Climate is a general average of weather conditions at a certain region or a place. Has anyone seen these stripes before? Do you know what these stands for? Anyone have seen them before? Just a simple hand raise, yes or no? Probably no. Well, this is the slide. We call them climate stripes. And what you see here in the bottom is the year starting from 1880 to year 2010. So from bluer to red signifies the increase in temperature in our atmosphere. So since 1880s, when records began, there have been slightly increasing, and as you see in news, every year is progressively the hottest year on the planet. This record has been going on since last 4 or 5 years. So we are constantly increasing the global temperature. And what it means is the whole world, our planet is becoming more hotter with time. And this is caused by excess fossil fuel emission, which is very much caused by human activities. What it happens is, due to climate change, temperature anomalies happen. What you see here on this global map is areas which will get hotter. The dark red color are areas which will get hot. There are bluer colors also on this map, which shows that the temperature will be lower. So climate change doesn't always mean everything will get hot. What it means is the extremes will be more. Places could get much more colder and places could get much more hotter. So if you think about humanity or life survival in a comfortable band of temperature, these extremes will be breached, and that will pose huge risk for the survival. What it also means is change in precipitation or rainfall or snowfall. And there will be areas where higher snowfall precipitation will happen. There will be areas where precipitation or rainfall will be reduced. So what essentially all the models predict that over time, areas will get wetter. So already you are having much more rain, will start to get more rain in future. Areas which are dry will get much more drier. So again, the point I'm trying to make is the extremes will be breached. There will be more extreme conditions. And then finally, there will be a global sea level rise. This graph here on your x-axis is the sea level in millimeters, and x-axis is the year and y-axis is the sea level rise. What you see, the incline of this slope suggests how fast sea levels are rising. It is shown in millimeters, which is maybe this small, but due to tides which happen in coastal areas, even half or 10 centimeter or 15 centimeter of change means some areas will be constantly flooded and some areas will be constantly dry, which will have a lot of implication. And we are going to see what those implications are, how we can make sense of it. So what we face here as a country, as a nation, as a society is this immense challenge of climate change, where everything that we know, that we have lived through is going to be changed over time. We have to learn to live with it. We have to do actions to reduce it. And those two terms are mitigation and adaptation. How we can reduce emissions of greenhouse gases is known as mitigation, and how do you learn to live in these conditions are known as adaptation. So there are different actions you can take which will enhance mitigation, which will reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere, and then adaptations, how our society can cope with these changes. So these are just some examples of those actions, and in between what you see where these two circles interact are actions which have both mitigation aspect as well as adaptation aspect. So if you are a policy maker, if you have to make a decision, you will try to choose areas which have both mitigation as well as adaptation aspect. So when we talk about these strategies, these solutions, what comes up is nature-based solution, how we can utilize nature in this effort, in this solution, how we can use Earth's own natural ecosystems to help in this climate change arena. And that's where wetlands, which you see this circle in the middle, comes up as one of the superheroes, where wetlands can be used to tackle these issues of climate change. Particularly so, what you see in this map is there is a horizontal line, which is line you can think of as ground level. So biomass stored above ground and below ground. The larger green circle below the horizontal line shows below ground carbon sequestration. So wetlands are superheroes because they can store much more carbon underground in the root mass, in the soil sediment. So if you are protecting a same unit area of wetland and a grassland, then wetlands will sequester or protect or store much more carbon. So it makes sense to protect these wetlands for a lot of these benefits and co-benefits. And of those one particular kind of those wetlands are coastal wetlands. We live on very close to the ocean, so you all are aware about coastal ecosystems or what coast means. And so there are three kinds of ecosystems that exist in coast. One is mangroves, which is what my rest of the talk is going to be about. And then there are salt marshes and seagrasses. These three combined are known as blue carbon ecosystems. These are maybe a lot of new terms I am sharing with you, but nowadays if you look up carbon literature, blue carbon is very, very important these days. These are important ecosystems because they provide a lot of services. They provide provisioning services, they provide regulatory services, they provide supporting services and cultural services. So if you look for a holistic, sustainable livelihood perspective, if you look for health perspective, if you look for nutrition perspective, all these coastal areas support these blue carbon ecosystems, support those services. If you look at their global stretch, this is a map that is showing these blue carbon ecosystems. So these are spread across world. So any solutions that comes from these blue carbon ecosystems can have a good distribution across the world. So you can think about many national and international policies where this will be useful. Some countries have all three blue carbon ecosystems, while largely countries at least have one type of this blue carbon ecosystem. So that tells you why this focusing on this particular ecosystem is very important. So now, as I said, why mangroves? So this is just a pictorial diagram to show why they are such a big superheroes. They not only sequester carbon dioxide, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, they protect us against any natural disasters like storms, surge, tsunamis by working as bioshields. They also provide a lot of medicinal and food kind of benefits. And then they are rich biodiversity hotspots. Because they are an ecotonal habitat, they support much higher biodiversity than either a terrestrial forest or a regular wetland. So this is just an example of a typical mangrove habitat. I don't know how many of you have been under a mangrove shade or mangrove canopy, but these are specialized trees and plants that survive in an otherwise very harsh environment. And this look beautiful, but this could be because I work there, so I may be biased, but they are really very unique vegetation. And their uniqueness, this vegetation's uniqueness is termed as adaptations, which allow them to survive in these ecosystems. These are some of the names of those trees. Some trees can grow very, very huge. So although you may think that this is kind of a bushy ecosystem or bushy vegetation, but some of them are very, very huge, tall trees. These are some of the examples of the species which grow. But now coming to their tricks, how these species are able to survive in this otherwise harsh environment. So you may have heard the term about specialized adaptation. Mangroves have special adaptations. This figure you can see small salt crystals behind the leaf. So when they are growing in this salty environment, they can exude these salt out of the leaf and they can physiologically produce or sequester carbon and still be active. They also have very dense root ecosystems. If you ever happen to walk in a wet mud, you know how difficult it is to find its footing. Because of their roots, because of this network of root, they are able to stabilize that soil and grow and become those huge trees where other trees or plants cannot survive. They also have a unique adaptation we call vivipary. So it is only few species where a seed germinates while still attached to a plant. So when a seed is formed, you can see it's hanging. We called it hypocotyle. It has already started to grow while still attached to mother plant. So as soon as it hits ground, a plant or seedling starts immediately. So this allows these plants to survive in otherwise very harsh environment where it is very saline, where there is tidal influence and energy there. This is another photograph to just show you the dense root mass. It is not just to show how dense or beautiful or complex this is, but this is where they store a lot of carbon as a biomass. That's why they are important when we think about storing carbon as biomass. So these are some of the examples of ecosystem services that are provided by these mangroves. Basically coastal protection, tourism, carbon storage, clean water, and ecotourism, wildlife sanctuary, supporting the coastal zone from erosion. So all these things are provided by mangroves. But unfortunately, mangroves are still declining. They are being lost. This is a regional map showing where mangroves are present in Asia and Southeast Asia. Out of more than 50% of global mangrove coverage is found in this area. Of course, India is there. Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and a lot of these countries have mangroves, which is very, very important. But still, they are being lost. Why, even though they provide so much of services, why they are being lost? Because of human interventions as well as natural causes. A lot of typhoons or cyclones are coming and they are affecting nowadays. Wave heights have increased because of sea level rise. All of this is impacting these mangroves to survive. So that's why we have to do some effort to protect them. And we have to protect them because they are very, very important. So this is just an example of showing some of the drivers of mangrove loss. I said some are environmental drivers, natural phenomena where we may not be able to do much. But on the right side, we see a lot of anthropogenic drivers. Anthropogenic means created by humans, by our activity, by development, by industry, by pollution, by sediment load coming to the rivers. All of these suffocate the mangroves and eventually lead to mangrove degradation. I chose to draw these two circles here to show and remind you of the adaptation and mitigation circles, where in the center, what you see, protecting mangroves is both an adaptation and a mitigation action. And that's why if we need to counter the drivers behind mangrove change and loss, we will eventually help in mitigating climate change, which will help in adapting to the impacts of climate change. These are also linked to sustainable development goals. I believe this is the term which is used very frequently. In 2030, there will be a stock taking globally of sustainable development goals. Countries will be assessed which country has done well for meeting their sustainable goals, and each country will have to come up with some plans of action if they are lacking. Just in the context of mangroves, there are 6 sustainable development goals which are affected in the context of mangroves and coastal ecosystems. When you talk about biodiversity and Aichi biodiversity targets, there are 3 of them which are directly linked with mangroves. So not only it's important from the climate change perspective, it is important from the sustainable development goals, it is important from the biodiversity conservation, and it's important for the safety and security of our coastal communities. So human well-being is also linked to it. So what you can do, and this is an institution where you all are learning, studying, thinking about your career. I myself have gone through this process and I've chose to become a researcher. So what I am sharing with you is a mangrove research for action. Your research have to be rooted where it can aim to solve a problem. And how do you go about it? I'll be sharing some of these from the context of mangroves. We have established a mangrove monitoring network across India, where we have selected these sites across eastern coast and western coast and Andamans, where we set up these monitoring stations. These are permanent stations where a lot of parameters are going to be measured: tree height, soil parameters, salinity, and how the sediments are changing. So we're trying to develop and come up with a holistic assessment how these are changing, how these natural ecosystems are responding to the climate change. So this may be a little bit boring for you. It's not very interesting, but bear with me. I will share some of the field photographs which will probably you may find interesting. What we do during these monitoring activities or exercise are by using some high-level automated sensors that can measure changes in temperature of water quality, which can measure the salinity, how it is differing in the rainy season versus in the dry season, how it is changing with the high tide versus low tide, and what these small little things in the bottom can give you every 15-minute duration intervals, how the salinity is changing. As the tide is coming in, more saline water is coming, and how those vegetation are responding to it. We also measure the sediment load. On the right side figure, you can see how precisely we can measure how the elevation or surface of these mangroves is changing after an extreme event. This is a scientific protocol. So the important aspect of any environment observation or monitoring is to follow a scientific protocol that provides its robustness, that provides its comparability. So we follow a scientific protocol for all our assessment in all these sites where we do carbon stock assessment, we do vegetation characterization, we do soil accretion and erosion, and greenhouse gas emission. So a very thorough checkup. When you go to a hospital and you want a health checkup, you basically ask them to do all parameters, not just your blood pressure or your blood vitals, but pretty much everything. So that's what we are trying to do for these mangrove ecosystems. This is data logger installation. Those tiny little things I was showing you, we are installing them and then downloading the data after 3 months. It has inbuilt battery. It is recording every 15 minutes the changes. It is difficult work. You have to go in the middle of a mangrove forest. These photos are from Andaman, but it is very satisfying, very rewarding when you know that you have been to a place where no other people have come by. So in a way, it's It's a very unique adventure research, and it has a purpose to it. This is just a small clip of us taking a soil sample. As kids, we probably used to like to play in mud. I have made my career playing with mud. I'm going to these mangroves, taking soil samples and cutting these mud cakes. So it is how you find your joy in what you work. That is where the real passion comes from. As a student, as a youth, I will encourage you to find what interests you most. It could be just digging mud, but it could be fun, it has a meaning, and it will provide you with a lot of unique adventures, experiences that nothing else will provide. So basically, this rod which I have in my hand is a soil auger. It is a specialized equipment. The bottom part is 1 meter deep, and then there is a handle 1 meter. So basically, it's a 2 meter deep soil core. We have taken out these brown looking rich mangrove mud, which is full of carbon, and it is a very deep sediment. So all the mangroves, when they have these thick sediment, they are sequestering carbon there. This carbon is very important in our fight against climate change. We take this out, we collect small sections out of this long core, we bring it to the lab, we analyze it, we identify what nutrients, what kind of elements it has, how much carbon content is it, and then we develop. So this is what I was talking about, cutting mud cakes as an adult. It is very much fun. Moving on, so these are the soil sections. We take it. You can see in a spatula how brown it looks. It is all because it has a lot of carbon in it. This is another small compressed 35-second video, which is more than 2 hours, where we installed RSETs. These are rod surface elevation tables. This is in Andaman. We used high machinery. So when we talk about taking big challenges, it may appear that it's easy, but organizing a generator in the middle of mangrove forest in Andaman was no easy feat, because we have to use this power drill. And we basically inserted these rods up to the bedrock, and then later on we can come and measure how the elevation has changed. This is all in the name of research, and this is the data set. This has not been done in India. We were the first to do this in India. Thank you. And what gives me immense pride is not just one place as a token thing. We have been able to do it successively in different parts of the country, because if you know one thing, India is very diverse. All these mangrove ecosystems are not same. What we see in Andamans cannot be applied in Gujarat. What we see in Sundarbans cannot be applied in Tamil Nadu. So we have tried to establish this across India. This is Koringa Wildlife Sanctuary in Andhra Pradesh. This is Bhitarkanika in Odisha. And then we also worked in I think it is stuck. It's not moving apparently. But we have also worked in Sundarbans. Can you advance my slide, please? While they are advancing, you can see these mangroves ecosystems. What you see are the roots. These are pneumatophores, which allows it to breathe in a wet environment. This is another advantage these mangroves have, that they can survive. You can run it from there if it is not working. So we bring all this equipment with us, which have a small, that is our RSET right there in the center. We bring this stool, then we bring a measurement arm, and we put it on that thing. And you will ask why we have to do all of this. We have to do all of this because there is no reference point in a natural mangrove. We don't know what was the ground elevation. And if we are trying to establish whether this area is eroding or accreting, we have to have a fixed point. So what you see here is a horizontal arm, and these white pins are PVC pins which are being suspended. And what he is measuring is the height of that pin above that arm where it hits the ground. So every 3 months, we go to that site, we do this measurement, and if the soil has been accreted, that means the height of that pin will be lower. If it is eroded, then pin will go much deeper. So this is very simple things. You may think, oh, this is no brainer. But doing this, establishing this takes a lot of effort, and the data that it gives is priceless, because you cannot use any AI machine learning to have this data and know how this ecosystem is responding. So in today's AI world, today's machine learning world, I am very proud that we do something which still have its applicability and which is not going to be replaced because we have AI tools. And this is the beauty of learning some fundamental sciences, being an observer of natural environment, because that hard data, that data collected from the field is very important input to any modeling, any kind of policy where informed decision making is important. So whatever stream you are in, be very cautious about how the data is collected. Then only you can be very sure that the decisions made on the right data will lead to right solutions. Well, then after you have collected data, it's only meaningful if you are able to communicate, if you can analyze it, if you can digest it and can make it meaningful and communicate. So there are different ways of communicating. These are simple 2-page information flyers. We also use social media. This is Twitter feed, and this is just one instance where I posted after days work that we have installed, and by next day there were 1,000 views. So in today's generation of social media, Instagram, Twitter, this could be a very good platform for sharing your scientific advances and generating awareness. So this is basically channelizing and utilizing all sources you have. Very important, scientific peer-reviewed publication, because this is where the real value lies. That's where people will say that this was done in a scientific manner. This is where they can see that has integrity to it. Then you also need to have seminars like this, conclaves, symposiums. And we did last year in Chennai, first India Mangrove Conclave in December in Chennai, where more than 120 or 150 researchers from all over India came and shared their mangrove research. We are planning to make it biannual event. So maybe in 2026, we will have another one. But what I'm trying to say is this all boils down to the training and capacity building. It's only few people who are doing this kind of work, and we need researchers, people young who come with their energy, with their brilliant ideas and take this forward. There are so many unanswered questions we don't know yet. No one has gone and collected that data. No one has sampled those areas. So as an institution, I would encourage both teachers as well as students to have that curiosity in you, so that you are observant and you can be part of that solution. Why this is important is because when we look at about society and we look at problem, it's the lack of understanding that interrelationships. Very often we have very problem solution oriented mindset, where we identify a problem and we look for that solution. Very often what happens is the connection and interrelatedness across lot of different things. And this is an example in a very mangrove ecosystem setting, where what mangroves are providing are benefits in terms of climate change mitigation. They are also providing benefits in the context of climate change adaptation. And what is also important is from the health and nutrition. This is the complete picture. You can't just plant a tree because it will save me from the climate change, or it will save me from the next tsunami or cyclone, or it will provide me this benefit in terms of health. You have to think holistically how this ecosystem as a whole is important and what all benefits it is provided. And when you understand those interrelationships, then you know the flow of ecosystem goods and services, then it will allow to have healthy mangroves which can survive the climate change. Also, it will provide more resilience to human society, which will survive in the impact of climate change. So essentially, I leave you with some of my reflections. This was my presentation, but what I will say is that it is very important to tackle complex challenges through advances in wetland science. I'm sorry to say, but in India, there is not a single course where people study wetland science as a course. No college teaches this. There is environmental sciences, there will be a chapter on different things, but as a full-fledged course, it doesn't have it anywhere in India. Where I was when I was doing PhD in 2008, I was in wetland sciences group in Florida. So think about this gap that we have while these issues are pressing. Students and young research are important because this is where the real capacity building. We have such a huge potential of brain, of intelligence, but we are not harnessing it. So it's important that we tackle that, we address that, and we build on that. Communicating knowledge generated by science is important, and this is what is very unique now. Everyone is asking for evidence. People are not going to believe it is what because I said it. What is the evidence? What does data tell us? What is your observations tell us? So it is very important to think from that mindset. And as the beginning of your career, again repeating myself, it is important that you ask the right questions from the beginning. And then we have to have consistency and robustness. If one is doing one thing here, someone is doing something else, it just provides a lot of diversity, but sometimes it's very difficult for a policymakers because they can't then make a policy which can fit it. So sometimes consistent approach is very helpful. Collaborative actions are very important. The partnerships between institutions, between individuals, between different education organizations, community members. The partnerships is very important. Very often we feel like I am the sole person, I know most, and I can take it forward. That approach generally doesn't last very long. And then we have to be very cognizant of local traditional knowledge, what are people's preferences. So all of this comes together, and then only we can have a good solutions to the problem. So with these reflections, I leave you with some of the photographs from different places of the world where I have been fortunate to go in the name of research, and I was able to see these beautiful places, collect samples, analyze some of these, write papers. So these are different places in the world where I was able to go and interact with local communities. Sometimes we place those barriers amongst ourselves that, oh, this culturally very different, I don't know the language, what will I eat there, how will I live there, these boundaries and barriers just limits our ability to do good work. So I would just say that don't find yourself hostage to that kind of thoughts. There are no limits essentially. So these are some of those beautiful shots that I was able to click in different parts of countries, all surrounding coastal areas and mangroves. So just to highlight how beautiful this ecosystem is, other than all the benefits it provides. So with that, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us on environmental and anthropological drivers of climate change, importance of monitoring mangrove ecosystems, and providing nature-based solutions for mitigation of climate change. Let us take a call to protect our natural resources with wisdom and urgency. May I invite our chairman, Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, to honor Dr. Rupesh K. Bhomia, requesting all the dignitaries to join us. We invite Mrs. Biolaji Jebakumari Sugandhi, Vice Principal and Head of Corporate Secretaryship, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Gratitude is the fairest blossom which springs from the soul. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Seeking the blessings of God Almighty and the merciful grace of our revered founder, Sri V.L. Ethiraj, it is my privilege and honor to deliver the vote of thanks for this seminar on climate, health and nutrition in association with Chennai International Centre and India Potash Limited. On behalf of Ethiraj College for Women, today's seminar on health, climate and nutrition has been a remarkable confluence of knowledge, inspiration and collaboration. And we are deeply grateful to everyone who made it possible. We thank our esteemed and honorable chairman, Thiru V.M. Muralidharan, a visionary leader, for his continued support and guidance. Sir has always been instrumental in initiating programs like this. Thank you very much, sir. And sir has been pioneering all this in elevating our institution to greater heights. I heartfully thank the co-organizers, Chennai International Centre and Indian Potash Limited for their cooperation and support. A special word of appreciation and thanks to Dr. C. Chandramouli, IAS retired, Managing Director, Chennai International Centre, for his valuable presence and support. Our warm appreciation and thanks to Mr. Sabrish from CIC for coordinating with us in organizing this seminar. I extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, Chairperson of MSSRF, for gracing the occasion with her presence and sharing her invaluable insights. Madam, your contributions to science and public health continue to inspire generations. We are equally thankful to our distinguished speakers, Dr. E.D. Israel Oliver King, Director of Biodiversity at MSSRF, for his enlightening session on ecological stewardship, and Dr. Rupesh R. Bhomia, ex-senior scientist at CIFOR-ICRAF, for his thought-provoking presentation on sustainable landscapes. A special note of appreciation to our dynamic principal, Dr. S. Uma Gauri, and ever-energetic Vice Principal, my fellow partner, Dr. M. Jayanti from Self-Supporting, for their unwavering support and leadership. We owe our gratitude to the faculty members who introduced our eminent speakers with such grace and elegance. Dr. L. Shakila, Head and Associate Professor, Department of Zoology, and Dr. Priyadarshini, Associate Professor, Department of English. And thank you, Dr. Subhashini, for doing a wonderful comparing of this seminar. A special thanks to Dr. Enila, Head and Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science, for designing the invite card that set the tone for this august gathering. I profusely thank all the three eminent speakers for throwing light into the insights of their intricate topics covering areas like climate change, biodiversity, millet consumption, employability and growth, and mangrove ecosystem sciences. Last but not the least, we are truly grateful to our enthusiastic and vibrant audience, faculty members and students. Thank you for your presence and patient listening. I also thank our photographer Radhika for capturing the happy moments and making this seminar a successful one. I also thank Mr. Vijay Kumar and Hari Krishnan for their technical support. Let's carry forward the insights we have gained today and continue to foster a spirit of learning. Thank you all once again.
Thank you all for being part of this inspiring program. Let us continue to care for our health, for our food, and our planet together. Thank you. May I now request everyone to kindly rise for the college song, followed by the national anthem.
எனும் பல கலையும் பயிலுவோம். நாட்டினிலே அறத்தை காக்க நல்லொழுக்கம் பூணுவோம். ஏட்டினிலே கற்ற கல்வி என்றும் எங்கள் நெஞ்சினில் ஊட்டும் தெய்வ பக்தியோடு தேச பக்தி ஓங்கவே ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம். வயது தெய்வ தீபமாக ஒளிரும் கல்வி சுடரினை முயன்று தேடி காணவே முன் வைத்த கால்பின் வாங்கிடும். முயன்று தேடி காணவே முன் வைத்த கால்பின் வாங்கிடும். முயன்று தேடி காணவே முன் வைத்த கால்பின் வாங்கிடும். ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம், என்றுமே முன்னேறுவோம். எங்கள் எத்திராஜ் கல்லூரி ஏற்ற வாழ்வில் தேறுவோம். ஏறுவோம், ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம். ஏறுவோம், ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம். ஏறுவோம், ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம். ஏறுவோம், ஏறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம், முன்னேறுவோம்.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता. पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा. विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा. तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे. गाहे तव जय गाथा. जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता. जय हे, जय हे, जय हे. जय 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 हे.